This is Mujib from North Country Kettlebells. Today I'm going to be talking about the Double Kettlebell Strict Press and some of the components that go into doing safe and effective Double Kettlebell Strict Presses. Now, the Double Kettlebell Strict Press is a wonderful movement for the expression of limit strength, as long as the overhead range of motion with the two kettlebells feels comfortable. Now, all of the components that go into our single kettlebell strict press are going to be present in our double kettlebell strict press. The only difference is that I have two kettlebells, and so as I'm pressing those kettlebells up simultaneously, I really want to be thinking about my core engagement being the power source instead of my arms. That way, if I have one arm that feels stronger than the other, or as one arm gets more fatigued than the other one gets as we're going through the set, I can focus on my power source being the core muscles versus the muscles of my arms. With that said, as with all the other kettlebell strict press variations, the full body engagement is going to be key. So I always want to be thinking about squeezing the quarter with my glutes. I always want to think about bracing my abdominal wall, and I always want to think about being able to engage both hands simultaneously. Now, with the double kettlebell strict press, this might actually mean squeezing both kettlebells at the same time. So squeezing the handles as you're pressing them up. One tip with the double kettlebell strict press that I like to think about is pushing all of my force through the floor simultaneously as I'm pushing it through the kettlebells. So I'll think just as much about my legs as I do about my hands when I'm doing this kettlebell press. Almost as if I'm pushing force from the middle of my body in both directions, pushing down just as much as I'm pushing through the kettlebells. I keep saying through the kettlebells as opposed to into the kettlebells because I do want to think that as I'm pressing those kettlebells up, my force is going beyond them, not just into them. In the rack position, I want to think about overlapping my hands. That way, as I'm driving my force through the kettlebells, it's entering them as one unit as opposed to two separate units. This just helps with the focal point. So again, if I have one arm that feels more dominant than the other, if my hands are overlapped and I'm pushing the force through one single unit, hopefully that will override the fact that one arm feels stronger than the other. And I can just push the force through the kettlebells as if I were pushing up one single object. Likewise, on the way down, I'm pulling those kettlebells back to a central location. So back to that overlapped hand rack position. That again is just going to allow me to control them evenly, right? So if again I have one arm that feels stronger than the other, then if I'm letting those kettlebells come down, chances are that stronger arm is going to have an easier time controlling the kettlebell than that non-dominant arm. So if I imagine that I'm pulling down one unit back to a central location, that should help to control both kettlebells evenly. So this is going to be the common theme when we're dealing with two kettlebells, is trying to imagine as much as possible that I'm pushing into one single object. And really, by thinking about my legs, by thinking about my core, and by thinking about the power source being other than my arms, that's going to help me override the fact that one arm might feel stronger or fresher than the other arm as I'm going through my set. The last thing that I'll say about the strict press, whether it's with one or two kettlebells, is that it's really going to set us up for all of the rest of the press movements. So if I'm doing a push press or a jerk, the kettlebell strict press is what's going to allow me to find the path that my kettlebell is supposed to be moving on. So when we're dealing with these double strict presses, we're still going to be thinking about that, going from point A, the rack position, to point B, the lockout position, and smoothly transitioning between those two movements by overriding the weight of the kettlebells, by producing more force with my core and with my engagement pushing into the floor. As with the rest of the kettlebell movements, especially in the beginning, I want to keep my rep counts fairly low, anywhere from 1 to 5 repetitions, depending on what weight that I'm using and where I am in my workout. So if I'm using really heavy weight, feel totally comfortable just doing 1 to 3 repetitions. Or if I'm far into my workout, again, feel really comfortable just doing 1 to 3 repetitions. I can always do more sets, 3 to 5 or more. The main thing is that I want to think about at the end of every set, I should still have full control of the kettlebells. So I don't want to do so many reps and so many sets that I start to exhaust my ability to control those kettlebells on the way up and the way down. Try out the double kettlebell strict press. Let me know what you think about that. As always, our main focus is going to be on safety and effectiveness, especially when we're dealing with the double kettlebell strict press. This is Mujib from North Country Kettlebells talking about double kettlebell strict presses.